everybody's allowed to have their emotions. This is what I start with. You're allowed to feel what you're going to feel. You just can't land them on people, right? So that comes out to with respect. So I start with that as a hard line. I don't care if it's a client. I don't care if it's advisors. There's a lot of egos in the room. There's a lot of things that happen, but we have to respect one another. And the clients that do well with me are the clients who understand that. And I also understand that if they're having an emotion, it's not about me. So I'm just here as a vessel to listen and to help them. And I don't internalize or try to make it about what's going on. And sometimes they just need to be heard.
Welcome back to Tank Talks. I'm your host, Matt Cohen, founder and managing partner of Ripple Ventures. And we're tackling a topic on the minds of many founders today: life after the liquidity event. So you've built your company, you've pushed through the grind, and finally hit that big exit. But what comes next? Is it all relaxation and freedom, or does the real complexity start to kick in? We're demystifying the myths, exploring the emotional and operational challenges, and sharing practical insights for those approaching an exit or already navigating the post-sale fog. Joining me in the tank is Chris Canavan, founder and general manager of Canavan Private Wealth, a private office that services ultra high net worth individuals by managing the systems around their wealth, not just the money itself. With a background in global institutions and private office consulting, Chris brings institutional discipline to help founders regain clarity, control, and purpose after liquidity events. His firm focuses on coordinating advisors, streamlining operations, and turning fragmented wealth into a cohesive operating system. In this episode, we'll cover Chris's career journey and what inspired him to start CPW, and how he spotted the gaps in traditional wealth management, and as well as the early signs of wealth fragmentation, the post-common exit traps like becoming your own project manager, and how different founder personalities handle the transition, and explore the closed-loop model that converts chaos into order. Plus, we'll discuss the emerging trends in private wealth for entrepreneurs over the next few years. Now, let's jump into the tank for this week's episode with Chris Canavan from Canavan Private Wealth. Thanks for joining us in the tank today, Chris.
No problem. Good to be here.
Yeah, super excited to chat with you. Obviously you're being the general manager of Canavan Private Wealth, but I want to talk to you about life after the liquidity event. Can you tell us about your sort of experience before starting, CPW? You've worked at global institutions, private offices, doing a lot of consulting for, some high net worth investors and families. Can you walk us a bit through your career journey and what inspired you to get into the space in the first place?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, it's been a while now. I mean, I was kind of looking back at when I started. It was 30 years ago. So I've seen some ups and downs and some changes in the industry. But I've always came in, I always, pride myself on being a strategist. So I was always kind of looking at solving problems at the time. And the idea of family office has kind of evolved over the last 10, 15 years. And I've been drawn into the problem and looking at what it was for families. And, I built out a family office for one of the big four. I built out a private family office offering for one of the big banks, and really kind of kept looking at how to solve this problem that exists for a lot of these individuals, either like what I call legacy families or recently exited founders.
And the problems are so complicated. They're so intertwined in such a personal, professional, inserting yourself at a time when they've been basically heads down building whatever generational business they've built is also a very hard thing to sort of structure cookie cutter style, right? So, you've emphasized, in our conversations that you don't really manage money, but you manage the system around it. How did you identify those gaps in the wealth management space around sort of the systems or lack of systems in a lot of the ways that people were servicing families before you got into it?
I mean, I think it's the pain points that kept showing up. It didn't matter what institution I was with. It was always the idea that institutions were coming up with a set of solutions that were based on what they had to offer, what they were doing, but it was never really answering what the client was actually saying and what the problems were. And because of the way the wealth industry is structured and the advice industry really, it didn't allow for people to sit back and just say, okay, well, what is exactly you're looking for, Mr. and Mrs. Client? Like, what is it you need? What is it your pain points are? What are we solving for? And it was always things that were on their particular shelf. Because in all fairness to all advisors, they're all building a business, right? So you come at it and say, okay, well, we have a set of services that we want to offer to the marketplace. But when these individuals leave their institutions or businesses that they've built, which they have an internal infrastructure that they've put together, they're kind of at their own wits at that point, right? So they got to kind of figure out how to bring everybody together. And they kind of rely on these different institutions. And then there was this lack of communication. So it wasn't about having talented people, because there's extremely talented advisors out there, but it was how everybody was communicating, getting things done, because everybody was focused on their services that they were bringing. So that kind of fell short for a lot of them. So I decided, you know what, it's that layer between the advisor, the advice that there's actually, and then what the client wanted. So what is that membrane that kind of connected everything together, which I felt was the piece that was missing. So that's kind of where I focused my time.
Yeah, it's because like the transactions at the end of the day where advisors may get paid the most amount of money, those are the incentives, are usually the product they're trying to persuade some of these ultra high net worth investors to consider. But your perspective was, don't start with the solution and work backwards, start with the problems and then move forwards. And that may not intertwine with all the different services that a bank or a family office group has. And that's okay. But again, it's not an easy way to scale a family office manager. So you can understand why they do it that way, in a structured way, solutions offering on their platform, right?
100%. I mean, that's exactly it. And that's why I don't come at it from a critical perspective saying, the bank should do it better, or the professional services firm should do it better. Is they're actually doing what they're built to do. They're actually doing the services that they were built to produce and come up with. It's just that you can't be everything to everybody. You have to understand your limitations and your scope at each silo. And where is the specialization coming? So my job is really being the generalist, right? So coming in and, if a family had 10 silos, right, and every advisor was one silo and they're 10 foot deep, my job is to be 3 to 7.5 feet deep in every silo. So I actually understand the mechanisms and how everything works. And then how do we tie it all back together?
Yeah, but building a system like the one that you have built and requires coordination across so many different advisors, it's hard to really scale that, obviously, but that's not the goal for, obviously, someone like you. But talk us about how you found your first client to work with, and then how do you decide the best ones that are a fit for your coordination skills?
That's a great question, because, it's really a two-way street. I base the model of what I've done on EOS as an entrepreneur's operating system. And they have this idea in an operating business that you have a visionary, which is the person who kind of looks forward, has the vision, the growth, and they know exactly where they want to take this idea. And then beneath them, as important, is what they call their integrator. And the integrator is the one who integrates all aspects of an operating business, right? So they bring in your marketing, they bring in your finance, they bring in sales, they bring in inventory management. Everything kind of reports into the integrator, is accountable to the integrator. And then the integrator is accountable to the visionary. Like, that's kind of this generalized system. I just took the same model and I bring it to the entrepreneur or the principal, right? And the idea is that my job is really to integrate all of the different aspects, but because you're doing it on a fractional basis, right? And there's only 24 hours in the day. So that's the most expensive commodity that exists, is time. So I look at it saying, all right, well, how much time can I actually allocate based on the work that's needed? And I go for depth, not breadth, right? So the idea is I want to have intimate, good relationships with clients. And then it's understanding, is it a fit? Like the same as the visionary integrator relationship, I have to know that if we connect, because it is, like I said, it's a pretty intimate relationship, and you know a lot about the client knows a lot about you, and you have to be able to be authentic in your relationship with them, right? So it really has to be, it's not about selling anything, it's really be about being there for them in the way that they need you to be there.
Mm-hmm. Talk to us about those principles that you kind of work with, and the styles and the way it guides you. And how does that kind of translate into the day-to-day operations for your clients?
Well, I mean, to me, like I touched, like authenticity is super important because, and especially for these clients, Because there's enough people who's going to start treating them differently because of who they are, what they have, and what they've gone through. So the first thing is you have to understand that people are people, right? It doesn't matter what they have in their bank account. It's zeros and commas. That's all it is. And they don't want you to be impressed by what they have. It's about understanding, okay, let's kind of get over that part and treat them like human beings. So who are they from a values perspective? Who are they like from behavior perspective? And how do you get along? So that is kind of like the core tenet for me. So if anybody isn't real, who hasn't gone through real experience and can't open up with who they are, then eventually it's not going to work because they have their own quote unquote work. And then you got to kind of get along. Mm-hmm. Accountability is extremely important just because, you don't learn from success, you learn from your mistakes. So so you have to be able to identify. It's like I tell my kids, I say, if you're gonna pay for the tuition, you better get the lesson, right? So I believe that if you're not accountable, you're destined to make mistakes again. So I just ask everybody to be accountable for what they've done, including myself. So accountability is extremely important. And I believe in adaptability because this landscape is changing all the time. You can't be preset in your own decisions on saying, well, this is the way the industry is. This is kind of the way things are. You have to be willing to adapt, right? So especially with technology and AI and everything coming up right now, if you're not able to kind of keep up with what's going on in the trends in the marketplace and you stay focused on the way things have always been because it makes you feel safe, then you know what? You're destined to fail and you're not going to keep up with this market.
Mm-hmm. And I love that part about how just getting over the fact that, yes, these people are very successful. They were some of the earliest employees, some of the biggest tech companies in the world. They've had all the sort of emotional roller coasters of where they've gotten to the point they're now being introduced to you, but you have to just accept that and move on to sort of the things that they need help with. How does that translate into the day-to-day operations for your clients who may be used to having things done super fast at super high velocity, high scale, where in your world, you kind of have to slow down a bit and sort of take things at stake and then be very prescriptive on what you want to do? How does that work in you having to explain those things to people who may have been used to working in a high paced, high intensity environment like some of the biggest companies in the world they came from?
That is probably the biggest thing is really understanding where, people are going to have their behaviors and their emotions. It's like I tell my kids, I have 5 kids. So, I talked about my
a lot of lessons there, right, Chris?
There's a lot of lessons. So I think the idea is everybody's allowed to have their emotions. This is what I start with. You're allowed to feel what you're going to feel. You just can't land them on people, right? So that comes out with respect. So I start with that as a hard line. I don't care if it's the client. I don't care if it's advisors. There's a lot of egos in the room. There's a lot of things that happen, but we have to respect one another. We all have a part in this. And the clients that do well with me are the clients who understand that. And I also understand that if they're having an emotion, it's not about me. So I'm just here as a vessel to listen and to help them. And I don't internalize or try to make it about what's going on. And sometimes they just need to be heard. It's just kind of like, okay, yeah, it is frustrating. This is not moving the way you're used to. It's not like disrupting an industry where you're in tech and everything moves super fast. Unfortunately, the rest of life doesn't move that fast, right? So you have to kind of see around the corner for them, help them understand what's going on, and help them understand that everybody is really invested in helping them. Like the team of people that we bring together are invested in helping them, and they're doing the best they can.
Yeah. You obviously have done a fantastic job with the people you work with, but selecting new clients, that must also be very difficult, given that you have an intentionally limited client base to ensure you've got this depth and direct founder involvement. How do you select new clients to work with? And what does that scale look like to allow you to achieve better results than what somebody would achieve if they went to maybe a larger firm with a larger roster of clients?
The idea is it's so enticing to want to grow, right? Especially the financial world. It's like, oh, I can see this, and you multiply it on an Excel spreadsheet. And you say, if I have X amount of clients, my profits, I can see this line of growth. And the reality is, back to what I was saying earlier, there's only 24 hours in a day. And if the clients are actually paying to have your involvement, I can actually only see X amount of people. And I can make things efficient. I can use AI. I can have a great team. I can move things down. I can work on efficiencies in that flywheel and really making sure that we're kind of focusing on where we need to focus. But ultimately, there's only X amount of time. So if there's only X amount of time, then I can only allocate to X amount of clients, right? Depending on what they're going to need. And it's kind of like, it's ebbs and flows. Clients need more sometimes and they need less sometimes. So it's a slow model. But I am intentional in clients who want to be helped. So anybody who treats me or my team comes in, and, for example, in an interview, we're kind of looking at see if this can be a fit. If they look at us as a commodity, then it's not going to work, right? So they really want to have some help to help them build their enterprise, like their wealth enterprise. How are they going to do that? And those are the clients I can kind of find connections with, and I can see how we can help them.
And you're interviewing them just as much as they're interviewing you, I guess.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I tell them right off the bat, this is not a one-way process. I mean, I turn more clients down than I take on. So,
and that's not just being like cocky. That's just saying like, just,
no.
You know what's fit.
And the thing is, it's going to affect everybody else.
Right.
Right. So if I end up having, let's say you end up with, let's say 12 clients, is as much as you can take on. Like you kind of do your kind of how you want to do it. And let's say you have 2 bad apples in the group that are really drawing down
80% of your time.
Exactly. And then it affects everybody else. Right. So it's not fair for the rest of the ecosystem if you actually take those on. So I have a responsibility to the clients who do come in to actually be very tough on the actual clients that I actually end up onboarding eventually.
Well, you've seen a lot, Chris, and I want to talk to you about those things because we're talking here about life after the liquidity event. And we've got a lot of founders who are still founders waiting for that liquidity event. I myself have gone through some of it as well. I want to get some advice and feedback on things that you've seen and how to maybe correct them. So you obviously have mentioned how as wealth grows, it becomes more of a complex ecosystem with no one really running the whole system. Obviously, more money, more problems. We got it. But what are the early warning signs that a founder's wealth is becoming fragmented from what you've seen?
Well, if you look at the post-exit, what I see the most often is really when you start tracking your time is more on functional things and you're not having time to focus on what you really want to be doing. Like to kind of use an analogy, like, if you go to lake country in the summertime, right? And you're inside and you decide, I'm going to go spend the day on the lake. That's really what I want to do. And the minute you step outside, you're swarmed by black flies and they're on you and they're picking at you and they're kind of going, it's really hard to focus on spending that time on the lake because you're getting eaten alive, right? So then you lose perspective of what you were trying to do. It's all about the black flies now. And now you just got to get back inside. So think of the black flies as all those day-to-day functions that are now you didn't expect, you didn't see coming. And they're coming from everywhere, right? Right. All you really wanted to do is hang out on the lake. Mm-hmm. Right. If I kind of give you a kind of an analogy of
no, it's a great analogy. It's like being like the second you have an exit, all the advisors, all the opportunities just come rushing at you like a fire hose. And you can't even focus on like the core things that you really want to set up and focus on. So that's a great question, actually. So, when somebody has a liquidity event, they start getting engaged with advisor conversations, a lot of reactive decision-making to family office opportunities, and they just become almost drowned by all the things that are thrown at them. Can you give us maybe an anonymized example of how this played out for you in real life with a client that you ended up working with before they engaged with you?
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of times what happens is you have to understand that, and again, I say this with all the respect to the advisors out there, is they have a business to build. So they have a product offering, and there is, as much as they are ethical, and I do believe the majority of advisors are ethical, but the destination is not aligned. Like the purposes are not aligned, right? So the founder needs to sit back and look at the systems around them, right? Build their advisory board before they make any decisions. You can't deploy money. You can't do all these rapid kind of ideas before you have an advisory board to actually see what the architecture looks like. Like if you're building a house, you're not going to go to the furniture store and start buying couches right away. Like, let's put up the infrastructure first. Let's get the plumbing done. Let's kind of get, the walls up. The pictures and the furniture kind of come at the end. So it's kind of the same idea. And I've seen so many times that people get enticed with the quick talking and that what I call performance advisors, which are super important. But the performance advisors are not necessarily where they to be introduced right at the beginning, in my humble opinion. Like, this is the world according to Chris. This is not necessarily like true and fast, but this is kind of the way I see things. Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing. I always think about the Shaquille O'Neal interview where he's asked, how did he find his first advisor? And he tells a story about how, I was meeting with a couple advisors who recommended me, and they were telling me, yeah, I'll get you 25% returns a year, sponsorship deals, all these big things happening. And then I met this little Jewish guy, and he said, we're going to do government bonds. We're going to set up a trust fund for your kids and tax efficient strategy. He goes, you're my guy. Because it was the opposite of all the things that you were being thrown at that you want to have structurally set up before you go down this path. Now, a lot of founders who obviously are very smart in their own domains, they often rely on pretty manual things when it comes to their own finances. I'm talking manual spreadsheets. We're talking manual Google documents. What is it about high net worth individuals who still fall back on these outdated tools when it comes to managing their finances? And what risk does that pose when you see this the first time, and how do you try to correct it?
Well, it's they do what they understand, right? So the idea is especially in Canada, which is very different, we have a closed banking system. So it's very hard to pull these reports on what they're trying to do in an automated way. And a lot of times, especially in the tech sector, they don't understand that. Like, it shouldn't be that complicated. It should actually work. It should be just a flow of data. And there's so many things in the background that stop that from happening. So then they say, you know what, the hell with it. I'm just gonna use Excel, because I know how to do Excel. I know how to put numbers in. I know what I'm looking at. I can control my universe. So it's coming to the place where they can actually believe what's happening is actually being able to do what they want. And there's only a handful of real platforms that actually are addressed to some of these founders actually can help them do the aggregation and understand how that works. But it's a whole different system. I mean, like, they have it on, even from Excel, they have it on sticky notes on their computers, and they have the logins to their angel list, and they have everything here and there. And, if they get hit by a truck, then there's just no way to know where all of these LPs are actually sitting, or these investments are sitting, because it's all in their brain.
Those are a lot of documents that myself as a GP and as an LP and running a small family office see all the time. And it is still crazy that even me having to run the things on those types of systems is pretty complicated. So that is key man risk at its finest, I guess. Right, Chris?
It is. I mean, I think, think of it as an inventory rather than a lot of people kind of look at it and say, you know what, I'm going to give you performance. I'm going to do all these things. And it's so hard because everybody tracks information differently. I just tell people, look at it as an inventory. Like, the first base thing you're going to do, like you're running your business, right? You should have an ERP inventory system that basically you can track, you know where everything is, and then you can move to the next level of how that works.
Yeah. Chris, I got to ask, like, day-to-day stuff, like, there's a lot of things that your team does. Okay. You take on a financial operations, the banking side, you manage payables, liquidity, capital movement. Explain on a weekly basis sort of what you are trying to help a lot of your clients with, and what sort of reporting or insights do they get when you are kind of heavily involved as a partner for them?
Well, I think it's on different levels, right? So you have the static reporting, which is kind of like we were just talking about, is on where are your assets? What's my net worth? Where is everything sitting? And that's pretty static in nature. And then you have the execution, which is one of banking, the finance. And then it really is developing, a tech stack that fits what the client wants and what they're trying to get. So a lot of times they will get we take care of a lot of the banking and finance and accounts payable. And you don't think accounts payable are a lot, but when you get into this space, you're buying and spending a lot on different things. And there's a lot of different areas operationally that now have become involved. So you do end up having payable runs every week. And then it's kind of like, okay, what's in the payable run? Is it lifestyle? Is it operational? Is it investments? So we kind of prepare all of those. And then we use a platform a lot of time, depending on the client. Like, we like a platform like Pluto, right, which we've used quite a bit, which allows us to kind of go in, and in combination with in combination with QuickBooks, like, or you can use Zero, but any of them, right? So the idea is that you need like efficient accounting kind of structure set up. And then you want to automate this as much as possible. If you want to reduce the amount of human involvement as much as you can. So we do use AI and scraping of invoices. And like, there's all these different firms out there that we can actually engage and help us kind of produce this flow for the client that allows them to have the data in front of them so they can make informed decisions.
Yeah, that's a lot of kind of administration and oversight that, involves your team scraping a lot of documents, providing consolidated reporting, a lot of verification of legal documents that you have to review before signing. And because a lot of these people don't have time to read sub documents, capital calls, things like that. So how do you make sure that your team is fully up to speed on all the things they are trying to invest in or be a part of when you're brought in at the last moment before signing a sub doc? Do you have like weekly calls and say, hey, this is on the roster. This is the pipeline of opportunities I have coming down that you're going to be ready to review? Or is it just being thrown at you like spaghetti on a wall?
I think it's a little bit of both. I mean, I will get
I appreciate the honesty.
Email saying, yeah, I'm going to say, you know what, review this LP. This is, it's closing next week. What do you think? And so then I'll sit down. I probably review, probably a dozen LPs every week. To kind of go through and you kind of know what you're looking for. There's kind of big thematic things that we're kind of looking for. Can you share any of
those things that like people should know about?
Well, I mean, I think the idea is what are they trying to accomplish is my first thing, right? So it's not so much before I even get into, like, if I look at opportunities, because these guys are, and ladies, I mean, these individuals are being approached with all sorts of ideas, right? Because they have money and everybody wants them to invest. So typically I look at it. Someone once told me, you're one of two things in the marketplace. You're a pain reliever or a gain creator.
I love that.
And the idea is that if you can solve someone's pain point, you have a business, a valuable value proposition, right? But the idea is that you can be a gain creator, but to do that, you have to have an established trust. So when I look at it, if I don't know you, right, and you come to me and you say, I have this potion that will solve all of your problems, right? And it's going to cost you $1,000. Well, Matt, I don't know you. So how do I know I'm not just giving you $1,000 for Kool-Aid?
Right.
Right. So, but if you've solved a bunch of my other problems and now you come up with something that really is valuable and I trust you, then you are a gain creator.
Yeah.
Right. So when I look at businesses, I really want to understand, do they have a relationship with the principal? So there's a trust there. If they don't, and it's something that's coming at them, then what problem are they trying to solve? Like, is it really a problem in the marketplace? And then I'll go deeper into the numbers and what their expectations are and all that kind of stuff.
So you really are advising, not just like, because reading sub docs on a opportunity fund or something like that means nothing. You got to look at the deck. You got to look at the people's background. Yep. You are offering a layer of diligence that maybe somebody who just has money and is focused on other things doesn't have the time or even the experience to really see. But because you've seen hundreds, if not thousands of these over time, you kind of pick out the spots that you really want to focus on and just present a list of questions, I assume, back to the investor and say, hey, have you considered these factors?
I mean, I focus on the story. Right? Because if we want to go, we talk about the silos. Again, I've done this for a long time, but I'm not acting as an advisor. So the idea is really filtering through the noise. And are the stories good? If the story's good, then I'll go back to the principal and say, yeah, the story looks good. Then we kind of go through the numbers and they can make some decisions. But ultimately, you got to be able to triage what's coming in. Because there's a lot being pitched to them every single day.
Yeah.
So
I love that. Let's talk about that side of things, being sort of a bit of a therapist towards these people who are suffering from so many different things. The post-exit founder often feels freedom after the sale turn into quite a heaviness post-sale. There's a lot of things that all of a sudden they didn't have time to focus on that they now have to focus on. It's a blessing and a bit of a curse at that time. What sort of misconceptions do founders have about the life after a liquidity event that you can shine a light on and sort of help walk them through that fire?
I think the good news is you had a successful exit. The bad news is life will never be the same. Right? So everybody is a series of behaviors, right? And it's human nature. It's just the way it is. And the reality is a lot of people are going to treat these founders differently. They're going to see them as their exit. Like that is who they are. They, so-and-so just exited from, like, this is how they get introduced. This is so-and-so. They just exited from XYZ. Well, XYZ doesn't define who they are, but a lot of people around them will define them by that exit. Because it's good and it's bad, right? It's like being a celebrity, right? They're defined by their latest movie or by their latest song or by the latest sports team they were on, rather than being a father, a mother, a friend, like a son, a daughter. Like there's so much more to these people than that. But the reality is outside of their core circle, they are going to be addressed differently, right? And people are going to expect things like, here, how about you pick up the bill? You got the money now, you do this. And it's just little things that are kind of like did not happen before.
True.
And they have to understand it's that. So then it's the idea. So that's the first part, right? So society is going to actually look at it a little bit differently. The other thing is purpose. And this is kind of the sneaky one. Every human being on the planet, this is again life according to Chris, but every human being on the planet needs to have purpose. I don't care where you are, I don't care what you're doing, you have to have purpose. And you see this with retirees, right? When you look at them, they worked at a company for 40 years and they retire and then they get their gold watch and then they have a heart attack within a year of retiring, right? Because they lose their purpose. They can't find themselves. And the funny phenomenon now is this is happening down to 30-year-olds, 40-year-olds, 50-year-olds who are just leaving their companies. And they're like, all right, I was running this massive business. I was the guy or the woman, and I was running the whole enterprise. And now all of a sudden, what do? I get up, I have my coffee, I'll kind of do this. What do? Like I got all this money and I can go travel here and I can buy so many cars, I can buy so many houses, but what's my purpose? So that's why the key thing I usually work with the principals is like, what is your purpose? Find your purpose. You've got to find something to do. Because you're just gonna be done if you don't.
Absolutely.
And I don't care if it's you want to hang out with your grandkids or you want to hang out with your kids all day and you want it but find purpose in what you're gonna do.
Yeah, I think people are talking about that more. I do appreciate you sharing those things because the emotional undercurrent when retirement kind of feels almost disorienting for builders post-sale. They had this coordination of people working for them all the time. They were a founder. They were the sole purpose of their life was this vision that they were executing on. And then they have this sort of post-exit trap where they're their own product manager or project manager for themselves. And this is so common around successful entrepreneurs. They don't know what to do when it's just them answering their own questions, right? Because they have to have a team around them. So how do you get them to feel okay trusting someone like you to be their project manager?
Well, it takes time. Like trust is very hard to build, easy to lose, right? And you have to have grace with people you're working with. So back to your original thing, it can kind of go both ways, right? So I have to trust them and they have to trust me. And you build that by being authentic and real and saying, listen, this is who I am. This is what we're doing. And you really try to help you get to where you listen to them.
Yeah.
The idea is that everybody wants to be heard. So don't come in with an agenda. Just hear where they're going, what is important to them, and really work with them and where they are. And that's something, I don't know, I've done that intuitively throughout my career, just connecting with people and developing those deeper relationships and that trust. But you can't come in and say, trust me. Like it's a lot deeper than that. And it takes time.
What's your longest standing client relationship? How many years?
I'm going to say 10 years now. This is with my longest client I have. They followed me from throughout my journey, really. They kind of keep there in different capacities. Like some of them, I'm always available. It's not about engaging me or not. Sometimes I have clients who just call me up and they say, listen, I know we did some work 15 years ago or 10 years ago. We really haven't talked about it. And I need some help on this. What do you think? And so, yeah, I can give them my advice and I kind of work with them. And then you have the clients who engage with me. And, when I was at the big four, I had clients there that I've gone their own ways, and you want to protect them from themselves. They're always kind of in the loop, and you want to know how they're doing. You stay in touch. But it's not always formal. Like, they're not always on the roster. And I'm rebuilding this roster in this new kind of capacity, what I'm trying to do and trying to build. And I'm being very deliberate, like we said in the beginning, on how I'm bringing clients on. But some of the relationships I've been helping for years, and they're not on the roster anymore, but I'm still kind of around.
Your services have different sort of tiers, I believe. You've got this core oversight, you've got this embedded private office. How do you determine which tier kind of fits a post-exit founder, and what does the flat fee structure align, or how does it align with the client's goals?
Yeah, so we moved away from the idea of family office. Like, it's kind of a term that's being used a lot. And I found that a lot of these founders are reluctant to the idea of setting up a family office just because it sounds so open leather, right? It just seems very antiquated. So I had a client who brought up this idea of private office. And I was like, oh, man, that actually sounds pretty good. And then it sounds a little bit more modern. So we started using that term instead. And it's just words. But at the end of the day, it identifies better what they're trying to do. Because some of them are not even married. Like, they don't even have kids. So it's kind of like, well, why? I'm not a family. So I don't understand. So, and then you start into the relationship, and then some need more, some need less, right? So that's why I kind of broke it down into tiers, because it's all about time.
And they can evolve over time as they
exactly
mature. Yeah.
So like a tier one client will be more oversight. We'll review some LPs. We'll kind of do their inventory for them, and we have that kind of touch. And it's time related. And then tier two is a little bit more involved. We'll probably do some of the finance as well. So we'll do some of the bill payments and those. And then a tier three client is really embedded in their ecosystem. Well, we actually embed in all their ecosystems. Like, it's not about being an advisor on the outside. Like, when we deal with a client, we are in their domain. Like, it's chris@xyz.com. And it's not at CPW. Like, to anybody on the outside looking in, my team is fully embedded in their private office. They have no idea that they're not with them. And big institutions would allow you to do that. They would have all these reasons why on that, we can't put our people under your domain because, we have our own rules and regulations and all this kind of stuff. But you got to do what the client's looking for. So that's kind of the model system.
Yeah, you're Chris at rippleVentures.com if you work with us. That's amazing. I love that. And I love how you kind of map out the assets. You've got Property Co, you've got Invest Co, you've got OpCo, you've got Spend Co. You kind of move with what they have at the time that they are at their stage of life. But I understand that the industry is shifting a bit, right? From pure advice to execution as well. How does your firm evolve over time? And what advice are you giving to founders who are approaching an exit to prepare for this wealth system? Because I work with a lot of founders, and I'm the one almost at the point of saying, hey, before we sign these docs and close, like, I need to connect you with this tax person. I need to connect with this advisor, this structure person, because these founders are not getting that advice from their parents and their existing investors. And us being a local Canadian investor and a founder myself, I've been through that. You got to ask the accounts about the capital dividend account. You've got to worry about the long-term capital gains exemption. Like, what's all this sort of conversations happening now with your pre-exit into post-exit founders?
Well, I always like to have a conversation with potential exit founders before the exit happens, right? So, like, when there's something on the horizon, they got to focus on the deal. That's always what I say. You got to focus on the deal. But I'll come in and I'll say, this is what's going to happen once the deal's on the table and everything's signed. There's a lot of people are going to start calling you, and everybody's going to put urgency. And typically it's going to be the performance advisors, right? You got to do this, you got to do this, you got to do this, and we can get you this. But they do it without structure, to your point. And I think the first thing that I say to them is that you need structure, and you need an advisory board. And an advisory board who's unconflicted, right? So that are just there, you're going to pay their rate, and they're going to help you, advise you on whatever decision or direction you're going to go. But we got to put some structure in place, and then we fill it out. And then we start bringing it together. And then it actually gives them this opportunity to breathe. Like, okay, I understand the process of what we're doing because it's all new to them. Like you get a multifamily office, they'll show up and they'll say, okay, we do this for you, this for you, this for you. And then everything they're talking about that's a problem for the client is typically related to a product that they're selling. And then they're going to find that out later. But it's kind of like, yeah, they're kind of bringing them down a path to sell them something later on. And again, it's not a bad thing. It's just that it works for the high net worth. It just doesn't work for the ultra high net worth.
Mm-hmm. It must be kind of cathartic for some of these founders to sit down with you and have someone speak their language when everything feels so overwhelming. And then all of a sudden it's like post-exit, they're like, oh, I'm in good hands. I have this sort of structure already set up. And when they meet with other founders, like, wait, you have all this stuff set up already? How did you do that? And it's like, well, I found a trusted partner like Chris to walk me through this because I was obviously drinking from a fire hose on so many other things that I found someone, basically is what I would say to someone. I found someone to help me through this.
I mean, I think a lot of times is that people stop trusting their gut, right? Because they got all these people saying, okay, this is new. You don't understand this. You don't understand the wealth world. We're going to take care of you. Like, we're going to take care of you. Don't worry about it. You just go and enjoy spending your money. Don't ask questions. Just go enjoy spending your money. We'll take care of everything for you. And then they're like, really? Is that the way it works? Like, it doesn't feel right. And what I'm going to say is trust your gut.
Right.
Because it actually is not the way it's supposed to be.
So demystifying this exit or this post-exit life seems like it's a key message for you with all the founders you work with, Chris. There's obviously, founders in a lot of pain or wondering what to do next, right? I got to ask, going ahead, looking ahead in the next 5 years, where do you see the private wealth industry changing, especially for a lot of the young Canadian founders who may have a big exit in the next 5 to 10 years?
A lot of these founders built businesses on the premise of disrupting the industry or where they're at. And it's kind of in their DNA to disrupt. And I think this is where things are going to change because great ideas are going to come from this. And I think they're going to take ownership of this on their own. They're going to be, you know what, maybe this works for my parents, my grandparents, but this is not good. We're going to do this different. And I feel the democratization of these private offices and how they're going to come about doing it is going to change dramatically. What it's going to look like, I don't know. But I do think that you're going to have a lot more efficiencies around operations and execution. And then advisors are going to be kept in the way they should. I mean, it's really about bringing the right people to the table and a contract and a relationship that makes sense for the client.
Yeah, it makes total sense. I appreciate you sharing that with us today, Chris. Before we wrap things up, we always ask our guests their fast favorites. Are you ready?
Okay, here we go.
First is your favorite podcast.
I'm going to say probably anything to do with football. That kind of gets my mind off of
Canadian
business,
football or American football?
No, American football.
All right, just making sure.
Yeah, no, it's I'm a big.
Who's your team?
I'm a big Seahawks fan, so
makes
sense.
Big
Northwest.
Being out west, I guess so.
Yep.
Next is your favorite newsletter or blog?
Andrew Wilkinson puts out a really good newsletter that I really like. It's always kind of a little bit all over the place, and it really has some interesting information. So
that's Andrew Wilkinson from Tiny Capital.
Yeah,
correct. Next is your favorite tech gadget.
Okay, I'm gonna be really boring on this one. I'm gonna have to say my phone.
iPhone or Android?
No, you know what? I'm the only one in my family who has an Android. Actually, me and my son.
So your family group chat has to be green because of you?
Yes.
Oh, it's terrible. But you are the dad, so I guess you can do that. Next is your favorite new trend.
I'm going to say AI. I'm a big adopter and believer in the way AI is.
What's your go-to tools? Like, what are you using?
I'm going to use chat for business, GPT for business. Yeah. That's kind of the one I use religiously. And I've trained it, and it is my therapist. It is my, how do I make chocolate chip cookies if I had to? It's like, help me with this LP and analysis, buy-side analysis that I have to take a look at.
I literally used it this morning to make a quick immune booster drink for my wife who wasn't feeling well. It was great. It's quick and easy.
Someone explained to me, chat, and it was actually eloquently put, when they said, it is like having the MIT valedictorian as your intern. It is incredibly smart and incredibly stupid all at the same time.
I feel bad for the next MIT valedictorian. But all right. Next is your favorite book.
My favorite book is going to be Happiness Hypothesis from Jonathan Haidt.
What's that about?
It's about the evolution of morality and how the society we've moved from this idea of having values, which helps us make decisions. And now we make much more decisions from a morality perspective. So if you think about it, morality is more visceral. Like there's a lot less areas for compromise and listening and talking. And you can see that in society today, right? It's funny because it was written way before all this what we're living now.
Yeah, it's true.
The idea of being a centrist, which I feel I am, is that when you make decisions from a moral perspective, it's very hard to find compromise, right? Because you believe in something that is so hard and true into your DNA. Where values, I can value something and you can value something different, but we still can actually sit and find compromise.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's awesome.
Yeah, he's a great author. He's a professor at NYU.
Sounds like one you should read every year.
It is. It's a fantastic book. It's
nice.
Fantastic.
And last but not least, your favorite life lesson.
Never argue with reality because you will lose 100% of the time. There's a waste of energy.
Wow, fantastic. Well, thanks for joining us in the tank today with Chris Canavan from Canavan Private Wealth.
Thanks.